So today our three experts are going to talk with us about how interim staffing works, what types of situations and problem solving they are seeing local governments use interim staffing for, and then what positions are popular positions for interim staffing and how you can be an interim staffing person should you be so interested. So I'm going to get right into our conversation with our experts, and I want to start with Jay. Jay, can you tell us how your clients have benefited from interim staffing?
Certainly. Thanks, Heidi. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jay Gillis. I'm the Director of Staffing Solutions here at MGT. Been in the staffing industry for about 20 years. During this time, I've had the privilege of partnering with both public and private organizations to create and implement tailored staffing solutions that address their very unique needs. These programs have varied widely, small teams with just one employee to more than large-scale operations with thousands. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to witness firsthand the tremendous value that interim staffing brings to organizations. And while we don't have time today to cover all of those success stories, I am excited to share some of these key insights. As anyone who works with or within a municipal organization knows, they face a very unique set of challenges. These range from fluctuating workloads to dealing with staffing gaps to retirements, leave of absences, unexpected departures. That list goes on and on. For all these and more, interim staffing offers a very efficient and effective solution. These benefits are very clear. First, they ensure continuity of services, which we all know is critical for local governments, where services are directly impacting the communities they serve. Secondly, it allows municipalities to be flexible, responsive. Interim staff can be brought in very quickly, provide that specialized skill set needed without having to manage a long-term recruitment process. Having that flexibility really helps maintain operational efficiency, especially in times of budget constraints, seasonal demands, etc. Speaking of budget constraints, another key benefit is cost savings. We'll talk about this more later, but municipal organizations can really save on long-term salary and benefit commitments by using interim staff and still have access to those skill sets that we talked about earlier that can deliver results. It also gives municipalities the opportunity to evaluate talent before making any long-term hiring decision. Think of it as a test drive. It's a great way to assess the fit of a candidate or perhaps determine if a specific skill set may be needed without making that permanent commitment to hire. Overall, interim staffing, it helps municipalities maintain stability, adapt to changing needs, and ensure those essential services we spoke about delivered efficiently while providing some financial flexibility too.
Well, that's great, Jay. Thank you so much. Ambica, how have you seen your clients benefit from interim staffing?
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Ambica Kaul. I serve as the Vice President at MGT. I have close to about 20 years of experience in information technology staffing, recruitment strategy, workforce management, and leadership. Most of my experience has been focused on serving SLED customers. Over the past few years, I've also worked very closely with leadership teams and clients to design and implement staffing strategies that drive the employee engagement and business performance. There are many benefits of interim staffing, and I think Jay has covered significance already very well. In a nutshell, I truly believe local governments can benefit from interim staffing by gaining immediate access to specialized skills, ensuring operational continuity during the transitions, reducing recruitment costs, and maintaining the flexibility and agility to address the evolving workforce and staffing demands. Great companies honestly don't need to pause for perfect hire. They should move forward with the perfect interim solution. It's really about fueling the momentum with the right expertise at the right time. In fact, in this fast-changing world, interim staffing is the bridge between immediate needs and long-term success.
That's a great point, Ambica, and particularly in the area where I know you spend a lot of time, IT staffing, it can be such a valuable resource for local governments. So thank you for that. Mike, what do you see? How do you see your clients benefiting from interim staffing?
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. Just a little background about me before we talk about the benefits of interim staffing. But I've worked in the staffing business focused on local government for about the past 9 years. And prior to that, I spent 30 plus years working directly in local government as a department head in management positions, and as well as in HR. So I am familiar with local government. I've sort of been there and done that. So I completely appreciate what what our clients are dealing with when a person leaves and they know they need to embark upon a sometimes lengthy recruitment, and it can take 3 to 6 months or so, and even longer if they can't find the right person to fill the position, right? So what we do and what we have done is help out in those situations, whether it's a finance director or whether it's a city manager, a city administrator, a parks executive, a public works director, HR, you name it. So it gives the client the opportunity to not rush into a position that they need to fill on a permanent basis. And also it allows the client to have someone of standing and expertise who's been there and can sort of help assess the operations and get it ready for the person who is following them on a more permanent basis.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mike. We're going to go through a series of questions, and our first one is for Ambica. I mentioned in the beginning that when I was in local government, there weren't many interim staffing options available, but how have you seen staffing challenges evolve over the past few years?
Definitely. I think staffing challenges have really evolved in local governments and is majorly driven by economic constraints, changing workforce dynamics, and heightened public service demands. Many local government employees are really nearing retirement, and that there is a significant loss of institutional knowledge and gaps that are difficult to fill. With budgetary and compensation constraint, local governments often have been seen struggling, right? And a lot of difficulties in attracting and retaining that talent, especially in specialized skills in areas like IT and public safety. It's also evident that rising expectations from communities, along with expanded roles in public health and emergency management, have also added strains on already stretched human resources. The impact of pandemic, on the other hand, and remote work has accelerated a huge shift towards the need for digital skills and changes in employee expectations. Hence, recruitment and retention has become a challenge now. On the other hand, modernization and technology shift is another major contributor in how staffing changes have evolved in the current. The drive towards digital transformation in local governments has created a gap between the traditional skill set and the modern competencies needed in the areas like data analytics. Lastly, I think it's important to realize that political and policy influences the hiring within local governments and is subject to lengthy bureaucratic processes and political oversight, which can slow down the recruitment efforts and hinder the rapid adaptation required to address the staffing shortages, and hence the need to adapt to alternatives like interim staffing.
Those are great examples, Ambica. Thank you so much for your insights on that. They're spot on. So, Mike, what type of positions in local government do you typically fill?
Yeah, thanks. I touched on a few earlier, but here's a list of the positions that we're involved in filling on a regular basis. City and county managers, community development and economic development folks, planners, permit technicians, those folks who are at the front counter and accepting the building plans, the home improvement plans for residents. We place a lot of finance directors, accountants, fire chiefs and police chiefs as well. HR professionals, we've got a good, robust library of HR folks who are interested in doing some interim work. Parks and Rec folks, public health professionals, and of course, public works, utility directors and engineers. And a lot of these positions are really kind of difficult to fill. And if you're working in local government, you know what I'm talking about. It can take a while to fill and get the right person to fill that finance director position or public works engineers. There aren't that many people coming up in those professions, which is a problem for the industry as a whole. But fortunately, our candidate library is stocked with folks who have a background, who are often retired and want to do and interested in temp work.
So, Mike, I think it's fair to say too that we also provide temps throughout the different levels of the organization. It doesn't have to just
Absolutely.
be at the department head. It can be an admin, it can be a
Yes.
deputy, it can be a planner. So,
Yeah.
so that kind of leads into my next question or my follow-up to you is, under what circumstances does a client call us when they're in need of a temp?
Sure. Those can range from an unexpected or even a planned, resignation, when the client needs someone on board while they fill the position on a permanent basis. And the next one, coaching and mentoring a new department head. This is my favorite because it could be where the hiring authority, the city manager, the HR director, they're not quite sure that the assistant department head or the deputy is ready to take on that department head level position. And maybe they need someone from the outside to help coach them up. And we've done that in a few different situations. I'm thinking like fire chief and engineer, and a CD director, community development director as well. So another example when a local government might contact us will be an employee on extended FMLA leave. Like we're dealing with a situation now with a small town in the Chicago area where the village administrator is about to have her first child in a couple of months, and they need someone to fill in while she is on FMLA leave. So we've got someone at the ready, a former administrator who's ready to step into that position. So I love when we can, when we have the people available and it's a right match and we can help the community out. The other thing we haven't talked about is project work. That's when a local government doesn't need someone to fill the position on a permanent basis. Maybe the workload is too great and they prefer someone to help out with special projects, such as enterprise resource planning implementation, where if you've been through that, it's a very intense position. And we've been able to find some folks with finance and IT background to help with that major initiative for a government. And on the finance side, assisting with audit preparation, on the planning side, taking the lead on updating a comprehensive plan. And we've had a situation in northern Wisconsin where some health agencies were consolidating into one entity. So they needed someone to sort of manage that for the 5 or 6 months that it took to finish it up. So we're able to find someone with that skill set to help out with that consolidation. So those are the circumstances. And I at the bottom of the slide, you see, a client tip. If you're contacting us and you are in need of a temp, I'm always encouraging clients to be flexible. Consider job sharing. Maybe it's 2 part-time people to fill that full-time job. Flexible work week doesn't necessarily always need to be 5 days. It could be 3 days. It could be starting at 7 a.m. and then, finishing early. And remote hybrid work. Ambica talked about that before as we're doing more hybrid as well as remote work, and it can be done. And we've got examples where it's worked, especially on the finance side and on the HR area as well.
Thank you so much, Mike. That's great. And that the project work, I think, dovetails nicely into the IT work that Ambica does too. There's a real connection there in what's going on in IT. So my next question is for Jay. How do you see interim staffing assisting local governments with their staffing challenges?
Sure, great question, Heidi. Yeah, and as Mike talked about earlier, how local governments face these very unique and often unpredictable staffing challenges. Maintaining consistent service for the community becomes much more difficult when staffing gaps just pop up. And this is exactly where interim staffing can help. So For those that may not have engaged temporary staffing before, it's really very simple. Municipalities use interim staffing to quickly fill key positions to ensure no disruption to critical services, period. And this can occur across multiple departments. You have public safety, you have finance, public works, planning, HR, a lot of those different functions Mike just mentioned. Interim staff can step in and quickly provide that expertise needed to keep the operations running, keeps them running smoothly, no disruption to the community. It's especially important in government, where these types of things directly impact the public. Can't say that enough. It also provides flexibility to address short-term needs without long-term commitment. As an example, let's say department has a temporary spike in a workload. Maybe there's a project that comes up that needs specialized skills or experience. Interim staff can be brought in to provide that immediate support. Among other things, it helps to prevent burnout among existing staff members who may have had to take on that extra work had interim staff not been brought in to do it. And it also ensures that the work is completed on time and without that long-term commitment of hiring. Another benefit here is the cost effectiveness of interim staffing. Local governments often, probably regularly, face budget constraints. Hiring full-time staff can cause a significant financial impact and a long-term commitment. Interim staff provides a nice budget-friendly alternative. It allows governments to utilize highly skilled professionals for just as long as they're needed. Without that long-term salary commitment with benefits, retirement, you name it. Basically just use them for whatever project you need, and then that's it. Another benefit is how it provides an opportunity to evaluate potential permanent hires. Let's say that you do have an open position, but you may have an uncertainty about the skills or experience required. If you use an interim employee, bring them in, you can assess that individual's fit, their capabilities, how they fit in with a team before making any long-term decision. Those are probably a few of the more popular ways that we see interim staffing used. We'll talk about more of the creative stuff here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. And I think your point about cost savings is so important because the client does not pay for benefits or pension or unemployment. If that were to happen, that is all a part of the interim staffing fee. So and the interim staffers do have access to benefits. So I think that's important for people to remember when they're looking at the costs of doing an interim or a temp.
Right.
So my next question is for Ambica. Do you see certain departments impacted by staffing challenges more than other departments?
Absolutely. And I think Jay and Mike did give that sense in their answers already, but local government staffing challenges are not uniform. Some departments face more acute difficulties, and it's only because due to the specialized skills required, the competitive labor markets and evolving public demands, right? I mean, we've seen staffing shortages mostly in finance departments, community development departments, public works and safety departments for positions like you can see on this slide listed, right? Another department where we have seen continuous staffing challenges is the IT, Information Technology Department. With rapid push for digital transformation in local governments, there is a growing need for tech professionals. However, local governments mostly struggle to compete with private sector for these in-demand skills, hence leading to persistent staffing gaps. Another department that you can see these challenges is the Human Resource Department in local governments, because they face a unique set of challenges that mirror broadening staffing issues while also contending with specific dynamics of public sector employment. I mean, budget constraints, bureaucratic and lengthy hiring processes, adapting to technology changes and policy and regulatory pressures. These are just few examples of why these departments actually can be seen struggling with these staffing challenges.
Thank you so much, Ambica. And for anyone who's in local government and is on this webinar, I'm sure they're nodding their heads about the different challenges you outlined for those departments. It's universal, I think. So Mike, tell us how the placement process works.
Sure. What we do first of all is try to understand specifically what the client's needs are. as a special skill set necessary, job knowledge, that sort of thing. And once we gather all that information, we'll access our candidate library. And I will talk to the candidates that I think best meet the client's expectations, see if they're interested and available. Because I mentioned many of our temp candidates are retirees, and they like to keep busy with some fun stuff too, in addition to working, right? So they're not always going to be available. So once I've got the candidates in mind, I've talked to them. We'll present their credentials to the client, and they'll tell us who they'd like to meet. And we'll set up the meeting, a video conference or on site. And if there's a match, then we're good to go. And we'll put all the details into what we call our employee leasing agreement. And the terms for the leasing agreement could be anywhere from 3 to 5 months. That's about average, but they can be as long as a year, a couple of years actually, depending on the client's needs. And what we're doing more of late is weekly and monthly retainers. So if we've got an HR person who's, for example, who is working for a client, but the client might not need them on a regular basis. So we've come up with arrangements such that it's 5 hours a week or 10 hours a month, where the client has the employee on retainer through us.
That's great, Mike. And I want to just mention that the candidate library it's a very dynamic. We are always adding people. There's places where people can apply if they're interested in being an interim staffer. There's a lot of conversation that goes back and forth between the recruiting side and the interim staffing side, because we're often in touch with people on the recruiting side who are looking for work. So
yes,
it is a free-flowing, liquid, and dynamic
absolutely
process.
Yeah.
So, Mike, have you had any situations where the temp employee is not a good fit? How do you handle that?
Excuse me. We have, but I'll preface it by saying that we've been doing this for going on 10, 11 years now, and we've placed hundreds of employees in different positions. But we have had situations where it just wasn't a match. We guard against it by making sure that we do our background review with the candidate, and then make sure that the candidate meets with the client. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. So those instances are few. I could count them on my hand. Those type situations. So it happens, but not that often.
Right, and the client does get to select the candidate, so they're very involved at the front end of the process. But as we know, sometimes but very rarely goes awry.
Exactly right.
So Jay, tell us a little bit. You mentioned earlier the creative ways, and now's the time. What innovations have you seen organizations utilize when they use interim staffing?
Yeah, sure. Well, your imagination's your limit, right? So governments are constantly evolving to meet the changing needs of their communities. Interim staffing has been a great tool for that. Along with what Mike was saying about having an employee on retainer, so to speak. A couple of great ways here that people use interim staffing is to just really tap into that specialized skill set for those short-term, high-impact projects. And by that, let me give you an example here of, let's say your city's planning department needs to have an expert in urban revitalization or sustainable development for a limited scope, limited period type of thing. Rather than hiring a full-time staff member, they can bring in an interim professional with that exact experience and expertise that would be needed to guide the project efficiently and effectively. That level of flexibility allows agencies to bring in the right talent at the right time, again, without that long-term financial commitment. Another popular innovative use of staffing is to test out new positions. Some municipalities, much like companies, may think, do we really need a person to do this function? By using an interim employee, they can come in for a fixed period, and they can try it out. Basically, they bring in somebody that has all those skill sets and say, okay, is this helping? Not so much. And before they make that, again, permanent decision, it really all goes back to being budget friendly and cost effective with taxpayer money. And that type of pilot program, if you will, trying somebody out can really help agencies avoid that unnecessary permanent hire. Seasonal demands come to mind. Another great way municipalities use interim staffing. We're in budget season now. Most of us on a fiscal calendar, right? It's budget planning season, and we are seeing a dramatic increase, as we do every year, with financial planners and people that are very familiar with government accounting practices and such. They come in, they help plan the budget, and then they're done. Annual employee reviews, HR departments, big towns, big cities with large amounts of employees have annual reviews, things like that. Elections come to mind as well. Every town that I know of has volunteer after volunteer working during election time too. So all of these are great examples of how towns are using that. Another neat thing that we've seen is by agencies creating a task force of interim employees. Basically, back to what Mike was saying with a retainer, these folks that are specialized, maybe there's a finance person or several finance people that they don't need them every week or maybe even every month, but they do want to call them in there when they need them. And these task forces are pretty efficient, and you can use them for whatever function you'd like to within the state or local government. Another neat thing is to bring in new talent from outside of your political area, if we could call it that, or your region. They're not politically connected, but they bring in some fresh ideas that they've experienced and been part of in other parts of the country. Yeah. So these folks can help drive organizational changes and improve internal process. They bring those fresh eyes into your group and really give you that unbiased opinion, and really the list can go on and on from that. But yeah, so I guess those are some of the more creative ways, and we keep seeing more and more ideas as clients call us and, hey, this is my problem. This is what we're thinking we could try, and it's really amazing to see what we come up with.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jay. So once the folks have hired interims, what's the feedback you receive from organizations, Ambica, about the quality of the work that the interim staff members do?
It's a great question, Heidi. There seems to be a lot of opinions and perceptions associated with the quality of work an interim staff member can bring. Honestly, the clients we worked with, they're very clear on the value the interim staff member can bring on their teams, and it's really evident through the increasing demand, at least we are seeing with our clients. Interim staff members should be hired with very specific objectives that mostly should be achievable in a period of their hire. Interim staff members are really critical in ensuring that operations do continue smoothly, while permanent staff members can focus on developing permanent solutions. It is helping organizations deliver pressing projects and initiatives. The turnaround time for hiring an interim staff member versus a full-time staff member is way less, right? Hiring interim staff with proven experience and strong recommendations can actually minimize the risk associated with the quality of their work. Defining the key deliverables for these individuals, performing, performance metrics and responsibilities, helping keep these interim staff members focused and accountable, right? Structured onboarding and support can ensure that they can contribute effectively. Regular check-ins should be done, right? Ultimately, the quality of the work the interim staff member does really depends not just on the individual, but also on how well the organization supports and integrates them. When well managed, they can really deliver high quality of outcomes and even bring fresh perspectives that benefits the organizations overall.
That is so true, Ambica. It's a partnership.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a team. So Jay, what's the typical profile of an interim staff person?
Wow. Well, they have a blend of experiences that they can bring to the table, specialized skills. These are typically seasoned professionals with proven track records of success and where they've come from in their different fields. They are highly experienced and capable of stepping into both leadership and functional roles. They typically do not need long onboarding processes. They understand things and they get things quickly. Probably a key characteristic of an interim staff person is their flexibility. They enjoy this type of work. They enjoy the new challenges of each assignment. They're quick to understand an organizational culture that they've been dropped into. They pick up on those challenges and different systems, and it really allows them to make an immediate impact. They're problem solvers by trait. They like to come into situations that are messy and bring their expertise. They thrive in a dynamic type of environment. And they're all one thing in common they have is that they're all very focused on driving results in a short time frame. They know why they were brought in right up front, and that's what they focus on. They're obviously skilled in change management, crisis management, specific projects, all those things you'd think of when you think of we need help and we need to get somebody in here type of thing. They can navigate very complex situations. They can deliver on an organization's strategic goals. And again, we'll go back to just what does this do? This ensures continuity of operations to the community. They tend to be very good communicators, rightly so. You'd think in these positions they have to be. They're able to build relationships with teams and stakeholders, leadership teams very quickly, which helps with collaboration and knowledge transfer activities that go on. They're self-starters. They don't need a lot of supervision, if any, once they get started and off in a direction. They're very comfortable in fast-paced and uncertain environments. So yeah, I would say, they just deliver. They know what they need to do after being explained the situation, and they deliver.
The phrase that comes to mind is they can hit the ground running, but they also are very good at reading organizations and knowing, how to fit in and how to make themselves valuable to the organization. So yeah, I think we've had some terrific experience with our temps. So Mike, how fast can an organization get an interim staff person in place? Say they have a sudden resignation. What's the turnaround time?
Well, it will vary, but if forced to answer the question directly, I would say probably between 3 and 7 to 10 days or so. But it'll depend on obviously candidate availability. We have that a robust labor pool, but as I said earlier, the timing might not be right for the particular candidate. The client's location. If they're rural or urban, obviously if they're urban, it's a little bit easier to fill. And if the client is flexible and can accommodate remote or on-site work, that's always a plus. And other factors involved too. But it can happen. It can happen over a weekend, or it could happen 2 weeks later. But we try really, really hard to find the right match. And but let me tell you just a quick story that I like to tell is a health district in the Las Vegas, Nevada area. They were in need of a person with an HR background who's familiar with union work, and just the week before that had a call from an HR professional in Alaska who said, Mike, this is what I do. And if ever you get a call and you think you might be able to help, then just let me know. So, had his resume and had the conversation in mind. So Nevada calls and I said to this person, what do you think? You're interested in this? He goes, heck yeah. Yeah. So he got the opportunity to work on site in Nevada. And he was there for several months, well received by the client, and then ultimately was hired by the client, a few months later. So, long answer to your question, but in some cases it'll happen, over a weekend, which it did in this Nevada situation. But other times it can be as long as a week, maybe 2 weeks or so.
That's a great story. And I have many more I can think of
Yeah.
where we've had those kinds of things happen, and it's really gratifying. So we're just about at the end of our time, and I'd like to ask each of you to give one takeaway that you'd like, one quick takeaway you'd like to leave with our viewers with respect to interim staffing. And I'll just kind of go across the row. I'll start with Ambica.
Thank you, Heidi, and thank you for the opportunity today. Interim staffing for me isn't just filling about gaps. It's basically injecting agility, expertise, and fresh perspective for clients exactly when and where they need it. For me, it's smart staffing.
Great. Thank you. Jay.
Heidi, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. We certainly hope this has provided a deeper understanding of how interim staffing solutions can benefit your organization. I just say if you have any questions or ideas you'd like to discuss, give us a call, shoot us an email. We truly love what we do, and we love impacting communities like yours for good. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Mike?
Jay covered what I was going to say, so I'll come up with something else. If you're interested in doing temp work, let us know.
Yeah, great point. Well, thank you all so much, all of our panelists. We so appreciate your expertise and the work that you do every day with local governments. And to our viewers, thank you for being with us. We hope this was useful, and we hope that you'll tune in again. We'll get you more details about April 23rd, where we're going to have another webinar on a different aspect of interim staffing. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.